Okay, guys, I'm sitting here with Ronny Cox at our breakfast table in Austin, Texas. Karen has made this incredible breakfast like she does.
Yum.
And we just had
and your
butter.
Mom's bread.
My mom's bread filled with butter. You know, I couldn't have less than 5 pieces of that bread. And we have guests from our Airbnb. We're getting ready for Strings on Grass, the first concert of the season. That's this Saturday night, and the weather's going to be great. And in from California, from Hollywood, yes, Hollywood, California, we have a multi-talented, we like our multitaskers here. This guy's a multitasker of the arts. He comes from theater, but he's also a songwriter and a performing songwriter. And we're talking about Ronny Cox. I mean, you can Google him and find out all the movies he's been in and all that. But we have him here performing his original songs, a show completely filled with his original music. And I'm sitting down here to talk with him a little bit about that. Coralina's in the background. It's a very busy morning. Getting ready for Strings on Grass. I'm going to ask him a few questions just to kind of paint a picture of Ronny, so you get to know him a little better before you come to the show. We're so glad to have you here for Strings on Grass. And for those of you who are new to Strings Attached, the model that I've been doing for the last 20 years is to take performing songwriters like Eliza Gilkyson. We started back about 20 years ago, and take their music and rearrange it and put our own spice, our own flavor to it, so that the performance is like a one-time event. They get to hear your songs. To that. Yeah, and it could be just improvised. It might not be like we're writing out specific charts, but it's putting our personality, and so it's about collaboration. And of course, that's what I love about music. Period.
Me too. I mean, that's one of the reasons why there are a lot of singer-songwriters who go around and play just themselves on the guitar. Yeah. I never play alone, because the fun for music to me is that interchange between people. To me, I hate to say it, but it's like acting alone. It's no fun acting alone, because or to be a little more crass, same with sex. It's better with someone else. But that's the whole thing. I love the concept of being really well rehearsed.
Okay.
But then you have within that structure, you have the freedom to go wherever you want to go, and so as soon as someone goes this other place, now you're tuned in. Now, if you're playing with someone who just wants to improvise all the time, then you never know when they're going to that new place. and I want us all to be cognizant of when he went there. So what do I have to answer that? Because music is a dialogue. Sure. And that's what turns me on about it.
And then, and so in this context, we have your songs as the structure, the framework that we're going to work around. So that's the focal point, the script in a way.
Yeah.
With this, and I agree with you. I like preparation. I think that more magic happens when performers are really prepared. They really know the material.
Absolutely.
This has to be the same for acting too, right? Like, it so freaking well. Same with music. Then that's when the magic happens. Do you experience that with both performing and acting? Like
absolutely, especially so with acting. But it's the same with music too. Yeah. See, I know these guys that go and rehearse their part, their role, and how they're going to say it. That strikes me as the height of hubris. Because let's say the line is "I love you."
Right.
Well, I can make that line mean "I hate you," depending on how I say it. So it seems to me presumptuous of you to decide how you're going to react. So acting, just as music, acting is reacting.
Okay.
And the key to both of them is listening. And you just have to listen to what's going on, and then you have a way to respond to that. And so, I'm such a huge believer in being absolutely stone rehearsed, and then everybody having the freedom to go. And as soon as they go there, and there's only like 2 rules: you can't screw up the piece.
Yep.
and you can't screw up your fellow player.
Right.
You know, so you can't be playing this song and all of a sudden just go someplace that just screws everybody else up. It has to be within that context.
Absolutely.
But within that context, just as free as you can possibly be.
Let me go on that. Let me riff on that a bit. I'm going to throw you some ideas here. Okay, so have you found is there any movie role or movie situation where you had other actors where there was a real sense of improvisation going on? Like, can you remember? And it was just like, you know, some people talk about like Robin Williams, you know, getting in with that guy. You don't know what you're getting into. So is there, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have a certain cast and a certain movie that you can mention where when you got in there, it was like, oh man, this is going to be...
Well, I can. You may have to edit it out a little bit. I don't know if you ever saw, I did a film called Total Recall.
Yeah.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I want to know about this.
So we were, remember that scene where I was playing Cohagen, and we captured Arnold and Merlina and had them there, and we were interrogating them. And it's, in this scene, there's a scene where the screen comes up and it says, Cohagen, sir, said they're running out of air in tunnel of whatever it is, and blah, 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 blah. And my character, Cohagen, turns to the screen and said, and the line was something like, how dare you interrupt me? I'm doing you're talking about people running out of air, and I couldn't care less. That's so trivial. Don't you ever bother me with that again. Something to that effect. Well, when we were in rehearsal, I was supposed to say that, but we were just rehearsing, and we were rehearsing, and so when they said, Cohagen, sir, they're running out of air in tunnel 13 or whatever it is, I just turned to the screen and I said, fuck them. So the writers were there. They just changed it. They changed it on the spot. So that's in the film.
Nice. So you get to be part of the process.
But we did with Eddie Murphy. That happens all the time. I mean, with Eddie, the danger with Eddie.
Yeah, tell me about Eddie.
The danger with Eddie is being able to maintain some composure.
Oh, I'll bet.
Off because you obviously can't be snickering over his dialogue, but sometimes he gets on one of those riffs and off stage you just hear this.
So you have to have this whole different skill set to not crack up in the middle of when they're running the tape, right?
Exactly.
And so you have to prepare yourself for that. Okay, I'm gonna do a movie with Eddie. So you gotta
now in Deliverance, in my first film, even we rehearsed that. This is almost the epitome of what you and I were just talking about.
Wow.
We rehearsed that movie. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal before we started shooting. And so we literally rehearsed every scene down to the... But once we did that, we always were free to go anywhere. And I'm not implying that
they gave you that freedom.
John Boorman was in strict control of the film.
Okay.
But because of that, you were always free to go anywhere you wanted to go. Here again with those two rules, I'm not screwing up the play or not screwing up your other actors. And so if you said something that didn't work with no recriminations or anything like that, John would just say, that didn't work, let's do something else. And so we did the whole film that way. Wow. And if you go back and look at that film, it was groundbreaking in many ways, because first of all, we shot it in sequence. I don't know if you know that. No. It's almost never happened before. We shot it in sequence. And we did all of our own stunt work.
Wow! On the river and all that. Even up on the climbing up on the cliff face.
We did all of that.
Whoa! And was that required? Did they say, "Look, we're not going to"?
We had an agreement going in that. I mean, John Boorman, and he changed his mind on that film after it was over, because John Boorman's philosophy going into that film was that if a shot was so dangerous that you needed stuntmen, that you shouldn't be doing the shot. So the goal was we were always going to do as much as we could, but we all had the option.
Right.
That if we didn't want it, we came to a place that seemed too scary for us, that we would say, I'm not going to do that. And with no recrimination, you just say, I'm not going to do it. But the problem with that, was that not one of the four of us ever got spooked out in the same place. Okay. So I remember one time I got to this place, and I, for a couple of years afterwards, I had nightmares about it, because we broke a canoe in half, and it was a terrible wreck, and I almost drowned.
Wow.
We got to that place, and I said, I'm not going to shoot this. And the other three guys, they said, you shouldn't, Ronny. It's fine. It's fine. And we'll just get someone to put him back there. We won't shoot on him, and we'll just do it. And so they're playing with your masculinity, your ego there, and so then pretty soon you're saying, "Screw you guys, I'm doing it." So you do it, but then somebody else would come to another place, and they would be freaked out, and they would say, "Oh, this doesn't bother me at all." So we ended up doing all of it.
All the scenes.
All of it.
Wow, that's hilarious. So was there, just real quick, was there a film where you felt like you had a straitjacket on, where the director, or have you been just lucky to get roles where you can have?
I've been really lucky that way, in that the directors nearly always, because here's the thing that I. And if this sounds self-aggrandizing, I'll live with it. But I do tons of homework, because that's the secret. Just as you with your music,
right.
It's that work you put in the woodshed that allows you to do it on stage.
Yep.
And so when I'm playing a character and doing, I will know everything that's going on inside this guy. Okay. And so basically what I try to do when I'm working on a role, I know what everybody thinks about him. I know how he feels about everything. I know everything about him. And I try to make myself an open vessel so that I have no preconceived notion about how I'm going to respond. Okay. Because acting is reacting, and so therefore I will know what my guy is supposed to do, and I will know more about my character than the director does. A lot of times more than the writer does, because the director or the writer, let's say my character comes in here, goes for a while, and then he disappears for a while. Yep. The director and the writer aren't concerned with my character during those times. I am concerned with that, so I have to. And so now, don't get me wrong, I am not one of these guys that feel like you have to become the character, because that's a big mistake too, because there has to be someone that's monitoring what's going on.
True.
Because sometimes you're playing a character. Yeah. That sometimes the actor needs to know things about the character that the character doesn't know. For instance, Oedipus doesn't know he has a mommy problem. Right. The actor has to know that.
Yep. I love it. And so there's a lot of creativity actually in being an actor. You're having to create. You are literally creating this world inside your mind, which then is therefore expressed on the outside.
I once had
the senses.
I once had a rather famous playwright who I was doing one of his plays, and it's a play that's been done for a long time, and even he'd seen 20 performances, or different performances, different productions of the, and he said, Ronny, you found things in that character that I didn't even know were there, and that really made me feel really great about that.
Yeah, cool. And then, so you made this crossover to writing, playing songs. Have you been playing music since you were a kid?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
My parents started taking me to square dances when I was 10 years old. My dad played for square dances, so I was calling square dances when I was 10. Oh. And then where I grew up in Portales, New Mexico, it was only 19 miles from Clovis, New Mexico. So I was cutting records for Norman Petty Studios when I was a kid in high school, and then I had a rock and roll band, and when I was in college, and that's when the folk music scare came along, and I fell in love with folk music, and I studied the child ballads for a lot of years. The child ballads from England and Ireland. There's like 400 tunes.
Wow.
It's sort of the basis of all the folk music that we have here. All one of my first heroes in the folk music field was Theodore Bickel. He was an actor too. Did you ever see the African Queen?
Yes.
He was the captain in that, but he played Fiddler on the Roof, and he's a really famous actor. He was in The Russians Are Coming, but he was also a folk singer, and he had a book called Folk Songs and Footnotes that I fell in love with in the '60s, and he had songs from all over the world.
Nice.
And see, I don't read. I just have, I don't even have that great an ear. So it took me a while to work through. But it's just all kind of self-taught stuff. And so all the time I was struggling as an actor, I was also struggling as a musician. I was playing the Cellar Door in Washington D.C. in Mr. Henry's, and I got my first Broadway show. I played the guitar in a scene in there, and I actually was cast in Deliverance because I could play the guitar.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was instrumental, pun intended, that I got the job. Now, not that I played it in the movie. I didn't.
Right.
Although, I got to tell you this. They would have, John Borman would have liked for me to play the guitar in the movie. See, the kid couldn't play. Billy Red couldn't. He didn't even know enough about the banjo for that to be his left. His left hand is behind him like this, and there's another little kid that knows something about the banjo. This just so it looks like he's playing. Yeah. And so we had to pre-record it and match the playback. Yeah. And since we had to pre-record it, so they got Eric Weisberg and Steve Mandel to do that. But John Borman wanted me since the kid couldn't finger it, he wanted my fingering to be correct. So Steve Mandel taught me the piece note for note. So I play it in the film, but that's not me on the soundtrack. And it probably cost me about $1 million. But having... By playing that, now, had I played it in the movie, we probably might not have had a #1 hit song out of it. But see, John Borman was not interested in that. He was interested he kind of liked the idea that this savant kid was showing up this mediocre guitar player.
Right.
So in terms of that, he was perfectly fine with me playing. So I got sort of known as a guitar, and then my second big film was a film called Bound for Glory, the Woody Guthrie film, and I picked and sang and sung in that. And then my first television series was a show called Apple's Way, and I picked and sang in that. So early in my career, everybody knew that I was this actor who also played music. But typical of Hollywood, I got into those big hit films, Beverly Hills Cop, RoboCop, Total Recall, Murder 1600, Taps. For a while, I was in every movie made. So generally playing men of authority, guys with suits and ties, businessmen, tyrant kind of bad guys. And so now, when people see me with a guitar in my hand, it's like it screws with their mind a little bit.
Yeah, you got to see it. Telling stories, about grandma and cornbread.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the other thing too. The stories are equally as important to me as the songs, and that's one of the things that. Yeah, because see. One of the reasons why I love acting and love music even more than acting is with the show, especially the kind of show I do, where I get to tell stories. I get to use my acting chops too.
True.
And the stories really are important to me. And so just doing a lot. There's a lot of people that they just sing the song, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And there's some people that shouldn't ever talk between songs. We've seen those guys too, but that doesn't work for me.
Right.
The half the fun for me is, and that's one of the reasons why I like leaving the house lights up, so that I can see the audience,
right?
So that I like for my show to feel like a shared evening that we used to have when we were kids in the kitchen or on the front porch.
Okay.
Sharing music with our family and our friends. And so the stories become really, really important to me.
Right. So when did you actually start doing the performance aspect of it? You were doing this in films, but then you began a career as a performer and started writing songs. So talk about what's special for you about actually performing music, as opposed to acting. There's some differences there. One, and two, why would you want to write songs? Why not do covers?
Well, most of the time I did do covers. See, I used to do. I used to do 2-hour gigs and do nothing but making Newberry tunes. When I got my first record deal, see, I was doing a show. I was going along in Hollywood and having a really good career, and I did a really one of the biggest flop television series in the history of TV. I did a show called Cop Rock.
Are you serious? No way.
Randy Newman did the music. And I got to tell you the truth. I never had so much fun. I mean, it was a miserable failure. They're about to stream it on Netflix.
Oh my God.
It's coming back on Netflix. Of course. But let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If you go to England and ask them what they think the golden age of American television is, they say Cop Rock. That was because Cop Rock was 20 years ahead of its time. It was the forerunner of Glee and every one of those songs.
Okay.
That was all. This was like almost Brechtian drama, police stories that every now and then broke into song.
Can we find this now?
Oh, absolutely. Look it up.
And you're singing?
Oh, absolutely.
I gotta find this.
Oh, look up the song. There's a song called in the first show. There's a song called "Guilty."
Cop Rock.
And it
is there a plot? Are there plots?
Oh God, this is so great. This is
it's like
police
Glee, right?
drama.
It's like Glee.
It's like police drama, heavy police drama.
Right.
And anyway.
Yeah. So
I did that show.
Yeah.
And it's the only movie or television show that I've ever done in my life. Because there were 13 of us that were regular. So you go to work every day, right?
Sure.
It's the only project where I went to work every day, whether I was called or not. I couldn't stay away. It was like a lot of times it was like watching a train wreck.
Yeah.
But because the learning curve was straight up, and everyone that worked on that show, you never had so much fun. So when that show closed, I realized how much I missed the music. And I turned to Mary and I said, I've got to go find. And at that time, I didn't know where the folk music community was, so I didn't know where else to go. I went to Nashville, and I managed to get a record deal with Mercury Records, and found out the album got really nice reviews. Did no business, none at all, and I realized right there that I wasn't a country artist. And it took me another 4 or 5 years to find the folk music community. And actually, the guy that sort of discovered me was Rod Kennedy.
Oh wow!
And he's the one that first gave me the imprimatur that I was okay as because one of the things that I've had to live down, and it's not so much now, but there's been a whole bunch of us actors who also play music, and most of or an embarrassment. you know. And so one of the things that we would fight against was people would say, oh, here's another actor who thinks he, just because he put a guitar around his neck, can play music. And so that was one of my frustrations.
Right.
But I seem to be living that down a little bit now.
Okay, so Ronnie was just saying he's been in some really, really bad movies and some really good ones, but we're focusing on the show this Saturday, Strings on Grass. And what is it about writing songs that drew you to being a songwriter? You said you did covers up to a certain point, and then age what?
Well, when I went to Nashville and I got this record deal, obviously the label there and the producers, they put me together with some Nashville songwriters.
Okay.
And first of all, I was amazed that a lot of those writers would sit down with me, but then I found out that was sort of a thing that they did. They put some novice writer with these writers, and the writer would write the song, and then you'd both say that you wrote it, and that was so repugnant to me that I had a rule, and maybe it was a bad rule at the time, but I had a rule that unless I had the melody already, and unless I had the idea, we weren't going to write the song. And then that's when I discovered, because those guys all sit around all day and they co-write all the time, but they're always looking for that hook line. They're looking for that line.
Okay.
And I, because all of a sudden I noticed, all of a sudden I was noticing not only were they willing to write with me, there were people calling up to write, ask if I had time to write with them. I couldn't figure out, but then I finally did figure it out, because I was writing, they were writing more verbally, and I was writing more cinematically. So movies, the whole idea, there's not that much dialogue in movies. You tell the thing by painting a picture. And so that to me is sort of the key to my writing in a way, is and that's one of the reasons why the stories become important to me, is to set up that picture.
Okay. In the mind of the listener.
Yeah.
At your shows.
And then hopefully you get the payoff in the song. Or if not, who cares?
It seems like there's a lot of laughs. I've played a lot of your shows, and there's a lot of laughs going on.
Well, the humor is important to me, and there's a I don't know. I just want to find a way to find that common human condition that we can all sort of wallow in.
Oh, okay, wallow in. That's interesting. Huh. But how do you find? Okay, we've talked about this before, and I've been on tour with you, and I wanted you to briefly talk about that. But playing a show musically versus a theater piece. What are the?
Well, I get.
What do you love? What's the difference?
The big difference is, and this is what really separates the musical shows from the acting shows in sort of a nutshell. And I love acting, don't get me wrong. Okay. But I don't love it as much as the music, and I can tell you exactly why. Because with acting, as much as I love it, no matter whether it's movies, television, plays, you name it, there is and must be that imaginary fourth wall between you and the audience. You can't step through the lens and talk to, or even if you're playing like the stage manager in our town, you can't step off the stage and talk to, even if you talk in the middle of the show. You can talk to them in character, but you can't. There is that fourth wall that's there
during the show.
Exactly.
After the show.
Oh yeah, but during the show, there doesn't always happen.
Okay.
But there is the possibility of a profound one-on-one sharing that can take place. That's another reason why I like to leave the house lights up. I want to see. I want to, because looking out there now, I had this conversation with Arlo about this, and he wants to be behind a wall of light. He doesn't want to see anybody.
Arlo Guthrie?
Yeah, because he's afraid that if he actually saw somebody, that would throw him.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm the exact opposite. I want to look out, and that's another reason. We all make set lists,
Right.
and in the cold light of your room, you're sitting and making a set list. But that set list needs to be malleable, as far as I'm concerned, because you've made this set list when you were around, but now you're doing this song, and you look out and you can see, you say, oh wow, I don't want to do this song, I want to do that song next. And so that, it just becomes,
it's reacting again. You're saying, because you actually want to be able to react to what you see in the audience, and you might change the set list up in the middle of performance. Oh, something is moving here. I'm feeling something energetically. I think we should move this song up here.
And that's another reason why when I do my shows as a rule, whenever my show starts as soon as they open the house.
Oh, okay.
See, most performers that I know closet themselves away to get themselves ready to do. And I'm not saying we all need to do that.
Right.
To prepare ourselves to do it. I'm not saying I don't do that. Mm-hmm. I just do it way sooner than everybody else does, because as soon as the people open the door, then I want to be out talking with the audience. And so by the time even if it's 500-seat auditorium, I will have had a conversation with everybody in the audience, so that the beginning of the show is a natural extension of that. And because of that, I can start with anything I want. Now, a lot of the singers, the performers who closet themselves away, whether they want to admit it or not, they're relegating themselves to starting with second-rate material. And now, don't get me wrong, their second-rate material may be way better than my first-rate material, but they're not about to start with their number one stuff, because they're going to make sure that they get the audience sort of on their side. They get the audience warmed up that you're doing this, and I'm doing
that. Makes sense.
And now we're 3 or 4 songs in, and now I'm ready to go well, for better or worse, I can start wherever I want to start.
Right, because you've already gone out there and made that
I've
connection.
done that.
Yeah.
And then my show doesn't end until they go home.
And I'm really excited that for Strings on Grass, that's perfect, because we have an environment of community. People come and they're out on the lawn and the sunset is going down, and we love the artists to interact before the show, during the break.
I always do.
We love that, so that's going to be perfect. So everybody can come and meet Ronnie before the show and say a few words, and that's awesome.
That's half the fun for me too, is getting to visit with everybody, here again, see, I'm doing the show these days. I'm doing the shows for a different reason than a lot of people do. I'm doing the shows that I want to do.
Right. So there's that love for the material and the music.
It's kind of hard to explain that to agents and people like that sometimes. That I would rather do a little show here than I would do a big show that might make them more money or do whatever.
Here's something that when you bring that up, as a performer, I prefer small shows, rooms. Like the show we did last night, Dark Side of the Moon, was in a beautiful historic building that maybe 100 people max. Like it would be packed.
Exactly.
But again, back to your idea, I love that.
I do too.
To look out and see a reaction. Standing up on the stage, I could scan the audience and I could really get a sense of like, you know what, they're with me. If you're in a 500-seat hall, you can't see the person on the balcony, and then the sound quality too. How is it for the person who's in the way back? They can't see your eyes.
Exactly.
Right?
Which is exactly which is another reason why I prefer film acting to stage acting.
That's true.
Because on stage acting, after about the second or third row, you can't. And acting takes place in the eyes.
Exactly.
This is listening and what's going on in your eyes. That's where it all takes place. And it's the same way with the music too. So, the most important thing to me about this whole thing is the connection.
Connection, right? Yeah, and all those big festivals, the first row of people are like 20 feet away. They're not up there, And with us, we have the grass. People bring their blankets, and they'll be sitting right there where you can just see right in their eyes.
See, for me, like for instance, you take a show like Woody Fest, and they had the big Pastures of Plenty where I never liked playing out there. I like playing in the theater, and I'd rather play even if I play in the afternoon
in the theater.
In the theater, that 200 maybe at the most. But then you have a chance at intimacy and personal connection.
We like that. And then so we're doing a entire night of your songs. Have you ever done that before?
I haven't. You know what? I'm one of the few singer-songwriters that I know that, as a matter of philosophy, have always chosen to do other people's songs. Even on like my first album in Nashville, I co-wrote 9 of the 10 songs, and it's not like I'm not a prolific writer, because like I said, I don't write quickly. And because I carry around songs with me for a long time, and they're not easy to write, but I've also, just as philosophically, I've always felt that as a folk musician, one of our jobs is passing on this music to other people. So if I know a wonderful songwriter from North Carolina named Jonathan Byrd, and you've never heard of him, then I say, oh, listen to this song. This is a Jonathan Byrd song. You need to know, or you don't know John William Davis from Denver? Let me play you this song. How about Jack Williams from Arkansas? Let me play you this song. So and like I said, I used to do 2-hour gigs and do nothing but Mickey Newberry tunes, because for my money, Mickey was the great Texas songwriter.
Nice.
To this day,
I hadn't heard of him until I played with you.
And to just lyrically, musically. He's just magic as far as I'm concerned.
So it's about spreading, the message of other songwriters, not just your own.
And I always
we won't be doing that tomorrow night. It's all about you, Ronny.
Yeah, well, that's the reason I got this idea that I've always done that, and I've never done a whole show. So who knows? This may be the biggest. This may be a one of a kind that's never repeated again. You may see a train wreck of epic proportions.
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, let's go watch Ronny. Who knows? Because first of all, I'm putting these songs together in a form that with the stories and stuff like that. I'm looking forward to doing it, especially with the kind of arrangements that you bring to us, because it'll be like, because I know these songs like the back of my hand, but this will be what we were talking about early, of me getting to listen to the things coming back to me that, oh yeah, that's different. Now where can I go with this? I'm really looking forward to that aspect of this.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Ronny. We're going to be on for the show in a couple days. Strings on Grass, stringsattached.org for more information, and come on out and meet Ronny, hear his songs, bring a picnic dinner, bring some wine, bring the kids. Everybody's welcome.
Make sure you come and say hello.
Yeah, make sure you say hi to Ronny and everybody.